Hey guys, how's it going? It's the Tominator. And with all these 90s videos I've been putting out lately, I figured why not go back and review the 1996 Mr. Olympia, the last remaining Mr. O from Dorian Yates' reign that I've yet to cover. Part of the reason this took me so long to get around to is because the available footage is pretty trash. If you thought the Mr. Olympia in 2019 had bad lighting, oh my god, stay the hell away from this one, because 1996 was even darker and dimmer. It was like they filmed these guys in somebody's windowless basement or something, I kid you not. Now, I did what I could to brighten it up so we can see a little better, but it's still pretty blurry, and there's nothing to be done about that. I wish somebody would go and remaster these like what Ronnie Coleman did to his old training videos on his YouTube channel. But for now, we'll have to make do because good quality comparison photos are almost non existent. You can barely find any of Shawn Ray standing next to Dorian Yates, and that's really the main matchup here, as that's who went 1 and 2, just like they did 2 years prior in 1994. Okay, but enough blathering, let's check it out already and get into some of these mandatories. So the footage does show us the quarter turns for a change, but as you can see, it's very low resolution, so it's difficult to call. And this is interesting because in the front relaxed, even Dorian himself has admitted that he wasn't very strong here and that Shawn probably looked better. And ordinarily, I'd agree with that. But based on this look right here, I'd probably lean towards Dorian. He's just so much bigger and broader, and his waistline looks pretty lean for him, so I don't see what Shawn can do to top that. In fact, I'd say he looks the least impressive because a young Ronnie Coleman on the right also has a lot more mass and width, making Ray's taper the least impressive of the three. The only thing he really has on these guys is the abs, but that's not going to win you the shot. Turning to the side, things get even weirder because now I'd give it to Ray. If you listen in interviews, Yates seems to think he's invincible from the side because of his thickness, but based on this view, I'd give it to Shawn for two reasons. First is execution. I just think he's hitting it better, twisting a little more to give the illusion of greater upper body width while really cinching in the waist. The second reason is because he looks a lot better through the pecs and the midsection. Dorian's pecs look flat and a little undersized here, and Ray seems to be showing more detail overall through the abs and obliques. So even though he's giving up a lot of size, I'd go with Shawn in the side relaxed. Ronnie just looks awkward here. The way he's splaying out his arms is too exaggerated, and so I'd have him in third for that alone. From the rear, oh boy, we got a heavyweight battle on our hands. It's almost Christmas, and you can tell these guys are getting into the holiday spirit with all the serrated lower backs on display. Ray's in particular is a real standout feature for him in this pose. He also shows the most definition through the glutes and hamstrings. But while he may hold the edge in the conditioning department for now, he's still getting thoroughly outsized and overpowered standing between these two juggernauts. I would give this one to Dorian easily because while Ronnie can almost hang with him through the back, Yates has a superior lower body with the tighter glutes and a much better set of calves. Turning to the other side now, and this time Dorian looks a little better. I think the angle's a little more favorable, but I still prefer Ray for all that detail through his core. I feel like Dorian's not really nailing this one. He needs to twist a bit more to highlight all that width upstairs, but right now, he seems to be doing himself a disservice by standing so straight and rigid, which makes him appear smaller and flatter than he really is. Ronnie, again, is almost the opposite problem, with that far arm sticking out way too far. It's more of a distraction than anything else. Alright, back to the front one more time, and I don't know, you guys tell me. I feel like maybe we've entered the bizarro world because normally I'd give the front relax to Shawn in a heartbeat, and Dorian would probably take the sides. But after watching this video, I'd have it the other way around. Anyway, that's the symmetry round over and done with. Let's move on to the real meat and potatoes of any bodybuilding show, the muscularity round. Okay, so first up, to no one's surprise, we've got the front double biceps, a great pose for Shawn. His shape is superb, and that vacuum is the icing on the cake. No way is Dorian winning this with a torn left bicep that throws his symmetry completely out the window. At this point in time, Yates' arms were becoming problematic in general, as his torso continued to grow and the arms began to look disproportionately small for his body. It's not obvious in some poses, but it's very noticeable in this one, so it's an easy win for Shawn. However, it's going to be an uphill battle from now on because Yates' worst pose is out of the way, and he's taking no prisoners in the front lat spread. Shawn looks great in his own right, but standing next to Dorian, he gets utterly dwarfed. Yates is literally like 1.5 times his size, and with the conditioning this close, Shawn just doesn't have a prayer. I'm a big time fan of Shawn's physique, but even my eyes keep drifting over to Dorian, so that's a pretty clear indication of who's commanding attention in this one. Yates takes the front lat spread. Side chest should be interesting because it's never been a super strong shot for the shadow, but let's let him get into it. Okay, nice hamstring drop on Shawn. But upstairs, now it's Ray whose pecs appear undersized, especially that near one, which is flat as a pancake. It's close everywhere else, the arms, the shoulders, the lower body, but Dorian's chest is just better here. Plus, he's still got the size advantage, so I'd have to give it to him. I was hoping Shawn could come away with this one, but not this time. Okay, from the back, this should be good because both these guys have outstanding rear double biceps. And oh snap, look at those lower backs. Do you ever see a top two like this anymore, man? I can't recall the last time we saw something like this in modern bodybuilding. Just crazy conditioning. Okay, and wow, they both delivered. Again, Ray looks amazing in his own right, but he's simply giving up too much size next to Dorian. He might even have more detail jam-packed into that back with all those little grooves and crevices, but Yates' back is harder and thicker. It's especially evident through the traps and lower back. Ray's lats might actually look better here in this pose. They seem to curve out more, as do his biceps, of course. But then again, Dorian's shoulders and forearms are larger. Yates is now even showcasing striated glutes in addition to those ridiculous calves, so Shawn's slight edge in detail and biceps isn't going to be enough to prevail. Dorian takes the back double. And 'tis the season once again breaking out the Christmas trees. Holy cow, what an epic shot that is. And in the rear lat spread, the number one thing that jumps out in my eyes is how impressive Shawn looks. I've heard people call this guy narrow many times, and earlier in his career this might have been the case, but looking at him here, can you really still say that? I'm very impressed how much he managed to bring up his back width over the years. But alas, it's still not enough to knock off Yates. Dorian is proving why he was one of the most dominant mass monsters in history, because Ray is absolutely no slouch from the rear, but Dorian still thoroughly thrashes him. And as much as I just praised Shawn for all his improvements, the only thing I might give to him would be the conditioning in the glutes and that trailing hamstring. That's it. Okay, side triceps now, and Shawn's going to be hard-pressed to outshine one of the best to ever do it. Yeah, those calves are just insane. You can really start to see why they always said this guy looked like he was carved out of granite. Okay, Shawn only gets into it as the scene is transitioning, but I will say he looks excellent. Extremely aesthetic, beautiful shape and flow in this one, but still not quite enough to match the rugged immensity of Dorian. Shawn even essentially admitted before his posing routine this year that the only way he was going to come out on top is if the judges decided to go in a different direction and stop rewarding mass. And unfortunately for him, they didn't, so Ray's advantage in symmetry and shapeliness just couldn't quite cut it. Okay, here's a couple more poses also featuring Nasser Al Sombody, who took third in this contest and even accepted the bronze medal at the end, but was retroactively disqualified for using diuretics. So that's why Nasser's often seen in the top callout, even though he technically didn't place if you look up the results. And right away, in the side chest, Nasser is on fire. This was always one of his strongest poses, and he schools both of them here in my opinion. Then again, I'm sure there's some purists out there who will complain that Nasser isn't hitting it properly, that he's turning too much to the front, whereas Shawn and Dorian are both hitting it in the more traditional fashion, with the chest propped up like Arnold used to do. But tradition be damned. I don't care what Arnold said to Franco in Pumping Iron about not hitting a front chest or yada yada yada, it's about the end result. And the end result for Nasser is that he looks bigger and thicker than either of them, and that's the main reason he wins. But for all you Nasser fans, here's where it falls apart for him, when they turn around. Already you can see he's the softest looking through the lower back and the glutes. He is competitive, and you might even give it to him based on the upper body, but those saggy glutes let him down. I'm sorry guys, I don't like making bodybuilding into a shredded glutes competition, but when the rest of you is so well conditioned and then you have this one glaring soft spot, it sticks out like a sore thumb and really detracts from the rest of the physique. I'd have to relegate him to third for that reason alone, even though he looks pretty outstanding overall. It's just a super tough lineup, and somebody has to be last. but truth be told, they're all pretty close in this one. Christmas tree-wise, Nasser's clearly the odd man out though, and same goes for the back lat spread. Even Ray looks better than him despite giving up a couple dozen pounds. This is what I mean about how impressed I am with Ray in this one, that he fills it out so well despite being a smaller bodybuilder. It's rare to see that from shorter guys, let alone someone with a reputation for being too narrow. So in this one, needless to say, I would go Dorian 1, Shawn 2, Nasser 3. But let's see what El Sombody brings to the side tricep. He's usually pretty strong there. And oh yeah, that tricep is positively meaty. His arm and shoulder is even outmuscling Dorian's, who, it has to be mentioned, doesn't look as dominant this time around. Maybe the angle's kind of off for him, but regardless, I don't think he's running away with it now at all. This one's incredibly close to the point where it almost depends on the exact millisecond you choose to freeze the shot because these guys keep subtly moving and twisting, so depending on the angle, you can make a case for any one of them. I honestly don't even know which way to go on this one, though I'm leaning slightly towards Dorian because I did think he deserved it before. So, I don't know, you guys can let me know in the comments, they've all got their merits. Finally, we come to the ab and thigh, the last mandatory pose because back then, the most muscular wasn't compulsory. Fortunately for Yates, who generally fared pretty poorly in it. But in the ab and thigh, he was solid and could certainly hold his own with his massive thighs and those flaring lats. Still, overall, I'd probably have to give it to Shawn or maybe Nasser because I feel like both of them have a better set of abs and slimmer waistlines. They also have more, I'm not going to say better, but let's just say more shapely quads. Dorian's quadriceps always looked a little odd to me with those humongous teardrops and very little outer sweep. His thigh separation was just weird looking too, so no, I would not give him the ab and thighs over either of these guys. But still, if we're keeping score, that's 5 mandatory poses for Dorian versus 2 for Ray. A pretty convincing margin to say the least. The only poses I would outright give to Shawn would be the front double and the ab and thigh. Side tricep, side chest, and back double were close but no cigar, and Dorian just straight up murdered him in both the lat spreads. When we factor in the quarter turns, I'd split it down the middle, with Yates taking the front and back and Shawn taking the sides. And like I said earlier, I'm not 100% confident on these claims going off this crappy footage. Ideally, I'd like to see more photos and whatnot, so take that with a grain of salt. So yeah, as much as it pains me to admit it as a Shawn Ray fan and someone who personally doesn't really like Dorian's physique, which I find to be rather unaesthetic and even ugly at times, I think he won this Olympia fair and square. 1996 was, after all, one of Yates' best years, along with 95 and 93. He was definitely bigger and better here compared to 94, where Shawn also came in second, and I felt pushed that version of Dorian a lot more. But judging off of this footage, it seems pretty clear-cut for where I'm standing that the judges got it right. So that's all for this one, homies. Let me know how you saw it in the comments below. And until next time, this has been the Tominator signing off, and I'll be back.